The Imperial cruiser Dominion moved silently through the darkness of space, its massive hull gleaming under the distant stars. Admiral Kim stood on the command bridge, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the holographic display of Imperial territory. The Empire had ruled unchallenged for 10,000 years, spreading across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Nothing surprised the Empire anymore. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings at the edge of Sector 12. Lieutenant Park reported, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Admiral Kim frowned. Sector 12 was empty space, a buffer zone between Imperial territory and the vast unknown regions. Natural phenomenon. No, sir. The signature is too ordered, too deliberate. Before Kim could respond, the ship's alert system blared to life. Emergency lights bathed the command bridge in pulsing red. Senior officers rushed to their stations as the main view screen activated automatically. Multiple space-time distortions detected. The ship's AI announced in its calm, emotionless voice. Unknown vessels emerging. Kim's eyes widened as the view screen showed a tear in the fabric of space itself. The void seemed to split open, revealing a swirling tunnel of blue-white energy. From this impossible rift, ships began to emerge. Not 1 or 2, but dozens. Then hundreds. "Magnify," Kim ordered, his voice steady despite the cold feeling spreading through his chest. The view screen zoomed in on the lead vessel. It was unlike any ship design the Empire had ever encountered, sleek and angular, with no visible propulsion system. Its hull was a deep charcoal gray that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "Sir," Park's voice had dropped to a whisper. "According to our species database, the ship configuration matches human designs." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Humans were a curiosity, a primitive species confined to their home system at the edge of known space. The Empire had documented their existence centuries ago, but deemed them too undeveloped to be of interest. Their technology had been rudimentary, their territory limited to a single planet and a few small colonies. "That's impossible," Kim said. "Humans don't have fold space technology. They don't even have functional faster-than-light travel." Yet the evidence was before his eyes. More ships continued to emerge from the spatial rift. Warships, by the look of them, though their designs were unfamiliar. The fleet was massive, easily dwarfing the Empire's largest battle group. "Contact Imperial High Command," Kim ordered. "Priority Alpha." As his communications officer hurried to comply, Kim turned to his tactical officer. "Weapons status." "Defense systems online, sir, but—" The officer hesitated. "Sir, I'm not sure our weapons would be effective against those ships. Their hull composition is reading as unknown." Kim nodded grimly. "Maintain defensive posture. Do not power weapons unless I give the order." The massive human fleet had fully emerged now, arranging itself in a perfect formation that spoke of advanced tactical AI or exceptional crew coordination. Kim counted over 300 vessels of various sizes, all bearing the same sleek design philosophy. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel," Park announced. "They're broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies." Kim straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The main view screen shifted to show a human woman seated in what appeared to be a command chair. She wore a simple gray uniform with no visible rank insignia. Her black hair was pulled back tightly, emphasizing sharp features and intelligent eyes. "This is Captain Lee of the Human Confederation," she said, her voice clear and confident. "We come in peace, but we will not submit to Imperial authority." Kim studied the human carefully. Her statement was both greeting and challenge, an introduction that acknowledged the Empire's power while immediately establishing boundaries. "This is Admiral Kim of the Imperial Navy," he responded. "Your presence here is unexpected. Humans were not known to possess this level of technology." Captain Lee's expression remained neutral. "There are many things the Empire does not know about us, Admiral. We have chosen to reveal ourselves now for reasons that concern us both. And those reasons are..." That is a discussion for proper diplomatic channels, Lee replied. We request a formal meeting with Imperial leadership. Kim's second-in-command leaned close. Sir, this could be the prelude to an invasion. Kim considered this. If the humans wanted war, why announce themselves? Why not simply attack? This fleet had somehow developed in complete secrecy, suggesting their intelligence gathering was exceptional. They likely knew the Empire's strengths and weaknesses already. I have no authority to arrange such a meeting, Kim said finally. But I will convey your request to my superiors. Captain Lee nodded. We will hold position here for 48 hours awaiting your response. After that, we will proceed to the nearest Imperial communication hub to broadcast our message directly. The screen went dark before Kim could respond. The implied threat was clear. They would move deeper into Imperial territory if ignored. Send everything we have on these ships to High Command, Kim ordered, and get me a direct line to the Imperial Palace. Within an hour, Kim's ship was buzzing with activity as research teams analyzed every scrap of data they could gather about the human fleet. Reports flooded in from across the Empire as news of the mysterious arrivals spread. Sir, the Emperor has responded, his communications officer announced. He's appointing you as special envoy to assess the human delegation. Kim felt a weight settle on his shoulders. The assignment was both an honor and a potential death sentence. If these humans proved hostile, he would be the first casualty. There's more, sir, the officer continued. Reports are coming in from the Imperial capital. The ruling council is in emergency session. Some factions are already calling for military action. Kim shook his head. Based on what we've seen of their technology, that would be unwise. Sir, Park interrupted, you should see this. The main view screen now showed a detailed scan of one of the smaller human vessels. Its energy readings were off the charts, suggesting power generation far beyond Imperial capabilities. How is this possible? Kim wondered aloud. Humans were nothing more than a primitive curiosity the last time we checked. Records show our last official contact was over 200 years ago, Park said. We designated them as a non-priority species and moved on. Kim understood the implications. The Empire had dismissed humans as insignificant, and in doing so, had missed the emergence of what might be the most advanced civilization they had ever encountered. The following morning, Kim boarded a shuttle to meet with Captain Lee on neutral ground, a small space station at the edge of the buffer zone. Security protocols were strict, with both sides allowed only limited personnel and no weapons. Captain Lee greeted him in a sparse conference room. Up close, she was shorter than Kim had expected, but her presence was commanding. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Admiral, she said, gesturing to a chair. I have questions, Kim stated bluntly. Lee nodded. Of course you do. Let me start by saying that humans have been observing the Empire for centuries. We chose isolation to develop on our own terms. Why reveal yourselves now? Necessity, Lee replied, her expression growing serious. There is a threat approaching, one that will concern all intelligent life in this galaxy. Kim leaned forward. What threat? We call them the Void. They consume all life, all technology. They've already destroyed 3 civilizations in neighboring galaxies. And you expect us to believe this? To trust you? Lee's eyes met his directly. No, we expect you to verify our claims. We've prepared data packages with coordinates where you can observe the Void's destruction firsthand, at a safe distance. As their meeting continued, Kim realized the humans were not just technologically advanced. They thought differently. Their approach to physics, to space travel, even to diplomacy, followed paths the Empire had never considered. When Kim returned to his ship, he found a message waiting from the Emperor himself. The humans were to be considered a priority threat. Military options were being prepared. The Emperor demanded answers. Kim looked out at the human fleet, still holding position exactly as promised. They had the power to challenge the Empire, yet they sought dialogue instead. Whatever was coming must truly frighten them. He began composing his report, knowing his words might determine whether the Empire faced this new threat with the humans as allies or enemies. The fate of both civilizations now rested, in part, on his judgment. As he worked, rumors already spread through the Empire about the humans' mysterious capabilities. Some spoke of ships that could vanish from normal space, of weapons that defied the laws of physics. Fear was taking hold, and fear made empires do foolish things. Kim hoped wisdom would prevail. But 10,000 years of unchallenged rule had not prepared the Empire to face equals. The coming days would test them all. The neutral space station Concordia floated silently against the backdrop of a red giant star. Built centuries ago as a trading post between the Empire and now extinct alien civilizations, it had been abandoned for decades until its emergency systems were reactivated for this historic meeting. Imperial technicians had worked around the clock to make the station habitable again, their fear of the strange human fleet making them work twice as fast. Admiral Kim arrived 12 hours before the scheduled meeting. He wanted to personally inspect every corner of the station, leaving nothing to chance. Armed Imperial guards stood at every intersection, their faces tense behind polished helmets. "The delegation from the human fleet will arrive in 1 hour," announced Lieutenant Park, who had been promoted to serve as Kim's personal aide. "Imperial security has completed their final sweep." Kim nodded, and the representatives from the Imperial Council, already in the observation lounge. 6 counselors, as approved by both sides. Kim felt the weight of responsibility press down on him. The Emperor himself had not come. Too dangerous, his advisors had insisted, but he had sent his most trusted officials. If anything went wrong here, the power structure of the entire Empire could collapse. "Admiral," Park hesitated, lowering her voice, "the humans have sent a message. They request permission to bring an additional member to their delegation." "Who?" "They wouldn't say, only that it's essential to understanding their position." Kim weighed the security risks against the need for diplomacy. "Tell them yes, but the additional delegate must submit to the same security protocols as the others." When the human shuttle docked an hour later, Kim stood ready in the main airlock chamber. Despite having seen them on screens, he realized he had never actually been in the physical presence of a human before. The inner Imperial planets had little contact with other species, preferring to let frontier worlds manage alien relations. The airlock cycled open. 5 humans entered, led by a woman Kim immediately recognized as Ambassador Yoon. She was tall for her species, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Unlike the military uniform Captain Lee had worn, Yoon was dressed in flowing gray robes with subtle geometric patterns. "Admiral Kim," she said, stepping forward and bowing slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Kim returned the bow, noting that she had adopted an imperial greeting custom. "Ambassador Yoon, the Empire welcomes you to neutral territory." His eyes moved to the other members of the human delegation. 4 were clearly advisors or security personnel, but the 5th figure made him freeze. It was not human. The tall, slender being had pale blue skin and large, lidless eyes. It belonged to a species the Empire had documented as extinct for over a century. "This is Tao," Ambassador Yoon said, noticing Kim's reaction. "He represents the Alanti people." "The Alanti were wiped out by a plague," Kim stated flatly. Imperial scientific teams confirmed it. The blue-skinned alien spoke, its voice melodious and clear. "Your teams were mistaken, Admiral, or perhaps misled. My people retreated into hiding when we realized the Empire was categorizing us as a non-essential species." Kim struggled to maintain his composure. "And the humans found you." "We found each other," Ambassador Yoon corrected gently. "The Alanti are just one of several species who have chosen to exist outside Imperial knowledge. We have built a confederation based on mutual respect and shared technologies." The revelation shook Kim more than he wanted to admit. How many other extinct or primitive species had the Empire dismissed, only for them to develop in secret alongside the humans. "The Council is waiting," he said finally, gesturing toward the main corridor. The meeting chamber was a large circular room with a transparent dome ceiling that offered a spectacular view of the red giant star. The Imperial counselors were already seated on one side of a crescent-shaped table. They watched the human delegation enter with a mixture of curiosity and poorly concealed apprehension. Grand Minister Jin, the Emperor's chief diplomat and highest-ranking official present, spoke first. "We understand you have technology that should be beyond your capability. The Empire wishes to know how this came to be." Ambassador Yun took her seat calmly. "Minister Jin, with respect, we're not here to satisfy Imperial curiosity about our technological development. We're here because a threat is approaching that concerns us all." "So you claim," said Minister Ryu, whose narrow face seemed permanently set in an expression of suspicion. "Yet you offer no proof of this alleged danger." Yun nodded to one of her aides, who activated a small device in the center of the table. A holographic display appeared, showing a star system Kim didn't recognize. "This was recorded by our deep space observers 2 years ago," she explained. The hologram showed a healthy star system, a yellow sun with 12 planets. As they watched, something moved at the edge of the system. It was difficult to define. Not a ship or a natural object, but a kind of distortion in space itself, like a shadow that bent light around it. The shadow grew, spreading across the outer planets. Wherever it touched, matter simply ceased to exist. Within minutes of the recording, half the system had been consumed. Within an hour, even the star itself was gone, leaving only empty space. "We call them the Void," Yun said into the stunned silence. "They've consumed 17 inhabited systems in the past decade. Their path will bring them to Imperial space within 8 months." Minister Ryu scoffed. "This could be fabricated. A convenient threat to trick us into an alliance." "The coordinates are included in the data packet," Yun replied calmly. "Send your own observers. You'll find nothing remains of these systems." Kim watched the Imperial counselors exchange glances, even if they doubted the human ambassador. The possibility that she was telling the truth couldn't be ignored. "How have you survived encounters with this Void?" Kim asked. "We haven't faced them directly yet," Yun admitted, "but we've studied them. They seem to be drawn to certain energy signatures, particularly the type generated by Imperial fold space engines." Minister Jin leaned forward. "Are you suggesting our technology is attracting this threat?" "Not intentionally," Yun clarified. "But yes, your current engine configurations act as a beacon to them. We've developed modifications that can mask these signatures." "And you would share this technology?" Kim asked. "Yes, along with defensive systems that might help us all survive." Minister Ryu's eyes narrowed. "In exchange for what?" "Recognition," Yun said simply. "The Human Confederation asks to be acknowledged as an independent power equal to the Empire. We will not become Imperial subjects." The demand hung in the air. For 10,000 years, the Empire had either conquered or isolated other civilizations. The concept of a truly equal relationship was foreign. "There's more," Yun continued. She gestured, and her aide activated another hologram. This one showed dozens of locations throughout Imperial space, places marked as uninhabited or restricted. "These are human settlements and observation posts, established over the past century. We have been your neighbors all along." Minister Jin rose to his feet, face flushing. "This is an admission of territorial violation. You've infiltrated Imperial space. We've settled regions you abandoned or never developed," Yun corrected. "We've harmed no one, but it demonstrates that our civilizations are already intertwined, whether the Empire acknowledges it or not." The meeting devolved into heated debate after that revelation. Some counselors saw the human presence as an act of war. Others recognized the practical reality. A species that could develop such technology in secret could not simply be conquered or ignored. During a recess, Kim found himself alone with Ambassador Yun in a small observation room. Your arrival has changed everything, he said quietly. The Empire is not used to change. Yoon looked out at the stars. Change comes whether we're ready or not. Admiral, the Void doesn't care about our politics. How did humans advance so quickly? The last Imperial survey showed your species barely reaching your own moon. Yoon smiled slightly. We knew we were being watched. Those early colonies your surveys found. Stage. We wanted to appear harmless while we developed in other directions. But why? History, she said simply. We studied how the Empire deals with advanced civilizations. They either become subjects or competitors. Neither option appealed to us. Before Kim could respond, an alarm blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Park burst into the room. Admiral, our sensors have detected weapons powering up on one of the Imperial escort vessels. Kim's blood ran cold. Whose authorization? Minister Ryu's, sir. He's ordered a preemptive strike against the human delegation. Kim rushed to the command center, Ambassador Yoon close behind. The view screen showed an Imperial cruiser moving into attack position against the human shuttle. Override that order, Kim commanded. I can't, sir. The cruiser is ignoring all communications. Kim turned to Yoon, expecting fear or anger. Instead, he saw only calm resignation. You should know, she said quietly, that our shuttle is well defended. As if on cue, the Imperial cruiser fired its main weapon, a stream of plasma that should have vaporized the small human vessel instantly. Instead, the energy discharge seemed to curve around the shuttle, dissipating harmlessly into space. The human shuttle remained untouched, protected by technology the Empire couldn't begin to understand. In that moment, Kim realized just how advanced the humans truly were, and how dangerous it would be to make them enemies. The attack came with no warning. One moment, the third day of negotiations was proceeding methodically in the main conference chamber of the space station Concordia *. The next, hidden weapon ports emerged from what had appeared to be decorative wall panels throughout the room. Admiral Kim, who had just been reviewing trade proposals with Ambassador Yoon, barely had time to register what was happening before energy beams lanced toward the human delegation. But the expected destruction never came. Ambassador Yoon simply raised her hand, palm outward in a casual gesture. The energy beams seemed to hit an invisible barrier a few feet from the human delegates, curving around them like water flowing around stones in a stream. The lethal energy dissipated harmlessly against the far wall, leaving scorch marks but not a single injury among the human representatives. Get down, Kim shouted to his own staff, drawing his sidearm as Imperial security forces burst through the doors. He couldn't understand what was happening. These were Imperial troops, but they were clearly targeting both the human delegation and Kim's own people. A security officer aimed directly at Kim. Admiral Kim, you are under arrest for treason against the Empire. Confusion flooded through him. What treason? On whose authority? Grand Minister Ryu's authority, the officer replied coldly. Before the officer could fire, something small and silver flashed through the air. It attached itself to the officer's weapon, which immediately powered down with a dying whine. Similar devices flew across the room, disabling the weapons of all the Imperial security forces. Kim glanced over to see one of the human aides calmly replacing what looked like a dispenser on his belt. The humans had neutralized an entire Imperial security team without causing a single injury. Ambassador Yoon stood tall amidst the chaos, her expression disappointed rather than angry. This was unwise, she said simply. The main view screen activated, showing Grand Minister Ryu's face. His usual look of suspicion had transformed into open hatred. The Empire will not be infiltrated by alien spies, he spat. Your human confederation is a threat that must be eliminated before you poison more worlds against us. Yoon responded with remarkable composure. Minister Ryu, this attack violates all diplomatic protocols. It also fails to address the real threat approaching your territory. There is no threat except the one you fabricated, Ryu shouted. Our deep space probes found nothing at the coordinates you provided. Kim stepped forward. Minister, I oversaw those probes myself. We found exactly what the humans described. Entire star systems simply gone. Ryu's eyes narrowed. Then you have been compromised, Admiral. The humans have obviously used their technology to manipulate you. As Ryu continued his tirade, Lieutenant Park sidled up to Admiral Kim and whispered urgently, Sir, I've intercepted communications. This isn't an isolated incident. Minister Ryu has deployed forces to attack known human settlements throughout Imperial space. Kim felt his blood run cold. If Ryu had launched a full-scale operation against these hidden human outposts, it could mean war. A war the Empire might not survive, based on what he'd seen of human capabilities. Minister, Kim interrupted loudly, stand down your forces immediately. This action is not authorized by the Emperor. The Emperor has been missiled by human sympathizers. Ryu responded, I act for the true security of the Empire. The screen went dark. Kim turned to Ambassador Yoon, whose calm exterior had finally cracked, showing genuine concern. How many settlements are in immediate danger? She asked. At least 12, Lieutenant Park answered, studying her datapad. Mostly in outer territories. Yoon touched the small device on her wrist. Captain Lee, Emergency Protocol Delta. Multiple human settlements under threat. A voice responded immediately from the device. Acknowledged. Defense networks activating. No offensive action without your command. Kim studied Yoon carefully. You knew this might happen. We considered it a possibility, she admitted, which is why all our settlements have defensive capabilities similar to what you just witnessed. One of the Imperial counselors who had been hiding behind an overturned table finally found his courage. You claim to want peace, yet you've hidden weapons throughout our territory. Defensive systems, Yoon corrected, designed to protect, not attack. Had we wanted war, Minister Ryu would not have lived long enough to order this foolish action. The station's alert system suddenly blared to life. On the main view screen, tactical displays showed Imperial warships moving toward multiple sectors. Admiral, Park reported grimly, Minister Ryu has deployed the 7th Fleet. Their weapons are hot. Kim made a decision. Open a channel to the Emperor. Priority Alpha. My personal authentication. As Park worked to establish the connection, Kim turned to the human ambassador. I need to know right now, if the Empire attacks your settlements, will you retaliate? Yoon's eyes met his directly. We will defend ourselves, but we will not escalate beyond what is necessary. Sir, Park called urgently. I can't reach the Emperor. All official channels are being blocked. By whom? Signals originate from the palace itself. Sir, I think Minister Ryu has moved against the Emperor. The realization hit Kim like a physical blow. This wasn't just an attack on humans. It was a coup. Ryu had been planning this, using the human arrival as cover for his grab for power. There's more, Park continued, her voice shaking slightly. I found encrypted communications between Minister Ryu and several fleet commanders. They'd been planning this for months. Ambassador Yoon observed the unfolding situation with remarkable calm. Admiral Kim, it seems you have internal Imperial matters to address. But we cannot wait. With your permission, I will return to my ship to coordinate the defense of our settlements. Kim nodded. Go. But please, show the same restraint your people have demonstrated here. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Kim accessed a secure terminal. Using his high-level clearance, he began downloading everything he could find about Ryu's plans. What he discovered confirmed his worst fears. Ryu had indeed been planning a coup for over a year. The arrival of the humans had simply accelerated his timeline. Sir, Park said quietly, what are your orders? Kim straightened his uniform. Contact every loyal ship commander. Tell them the Empire is under threat from within, not from the humans. That's treason if Minister Ryu has the Emperor's support. The Emperor would never sanction an unprovoked attack during peace talks, Kim replied firmly. Ryu is either acting alone or has removed the Emperor from power. Just then, the station shuddered violently. The view screen showed an Imperial destroyer firing on the station's outer ring. They're trying to prevent the human delegation from leaving, Park reported. Kim made another decision that would likely end his career or his life. Order our escort vessels to intercept that destroyer. Tell them to disable, not destroy. As his orders were relayed, Kim watched the tactical display. 3 loyal Imperial cruisers moved to protect the station. At the same time, the human shuttle launched, accelerating at a rate that seemed impossible for a vessel its size. The Imperial destroyer fired again, this time aiming directly at the human shuttle. Kim held his breath, expecting to see the small craft vaporized. Instead, the energy weapons seemed to pass through empty space. The human shuttle had simply vanished. Cloaking technology, Park whispered in awe. The reports were true. The scene outside the station quickly descended into chaos. Imperial ships loyal to Kim exchanged fire with those following Ryu's orders. The human fleet, still holding position at the edge of the system, made no aggressive moves but deployed smaller vessels that raced toward their threatened settlements. 6 hours later, as Kim coordinated what loyal forces he could contact from the damaged station, reports began to flood in. Every Imperial attack on human settlements had failed, not because the humans had destroyed the attacking forces, but because their defensive systems had rendered the attacks completely ineffective. Energy weapons were diverted, missiles deactivated in flight. Imperial troops who landed found themselves gently but firmly immobilized by invisible fields. Most remarkably, not a single Imperial life had been lost to human defensive measures. The only casualties came from ships firing on each other in the confusion of Ryu's failed coup. Late that evening, a secure transmission finally reached the station. The Emperor himself appeared on screen, looking tired but very much alive. "Admiral Kim," he said gravely, "you have our gratitude. Minister Ryu's treachery has been contained. His supporters are being identified and removed." Kim bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, what are your orders regarding the human settlements?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "We have witnessed both their power and their restraint today. They could have destroyed our attacking forces, yet they chose minimal defense. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach to these humans." When the transmission ended, Kim stared out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, the mysterious void was approaching. The Empire had nearly started a war with the only civilization that might help them survive the coming darkness. As Kim began drafting his official report on the day's events, he wondered how the Empire, proud and ancient as it was, would adapt to a galaxy where it was no longer the unchallenged power. Change was coming, whether they welcomed it or not. The distress call cut through the silence of deep space, desperate and fragmented. "Imperial Station Omega requesting immediate assistance. Unknown entity has appeared at the edge of our system. Our outer defense grid is." The message ended abruptly in static. Admiral Kim leaned forward in his chair aboard the human vessel Horizon *, watching as the communication officer tried to reestablish contact. "Nothing, sir," the young woman reported. "Station Omega is no longer transmitting on any frequency." Kim exchanged glances with Captain Choi, the human commander who had welcomed him aboard 3 days earlier. After the failed coup attempt by Minister Ryu, Kim had found himself in an unusual position. Declared a traitor by some factions within the Empire, yet secretly supported by the Emperor himself. When Captain Choi had offered him temporary sanctuary aboard the human command ship, Kim had accepted out of necessity. "It's starting," Choi said quietly, "just as we predicted. The void has reached Imperial space." Before Kim could respond, another emergency signal blared through the command center. "Gamma Station reports contact with unknown entity. They're requesting." Once again, the transmission ended in mid-sentence. Kim felt a chill run down his spine. Both stations were major Imperial outposts, each protected by defensive systems that could repel any conventional attack. Both had fallen silent within minutes of each other. "How far are these stations from our position?" he asked. Captain Choi consulted the navigation display. "Omega Station is 6 light hours away. Gamma is 8. But..." She was interrupted by yet another emergency signal. This time, the message came from the military outpost at Sector 7, one of the Empire's most fortified positions. Like the others, it cut off abruptly. 3 attacks in less than 10 minutes, Kim said grimly. All at different locations, all with the same result. Captain Choi nodded. "The void doesn't travel through space like we do. It manifests, appears simultaneously in multiple locations." Kim turned to study the tactical display. Red markers showed the locations of the 3 lost stations, forming a rough arc along the Empire's outer territories. If this was indeed the void that the humans had warned about, then dozens more Imperial worlds lay directly in its path. "We need to see what we're facing," Kim decided. "Can this ship get us to Sector 7 quickly?" "We can be there in 20 minutes, Choi replied without hesitation. Kim blinked in surprise. Sector 7 was at least 6 light days from their current position. Even the fastest Imperial ships would take nearly a week to cover such a distance. Choi smiled slightly at his reaction. "Human fold space technology operates differently from yours, Admiral. We don't tear through space, we step around it." She gave orders to her navigation officer, then turned back to Kim. "You should prepare yourself. What we're about to see, it affects people differently the first time." The journey was unlike anything Kim had experienced in decades of Imperial service. The Horizon didn't shudder or strain as Imperial ships did when entering fold space. Instead, the stars on the view screen simply shifted. One moment they were orbiting the neutral zone. The next, they were approaching Sector 7. What they found there defied comprehension. Where the Imperial military outpost should have been, a massive structure housing 10,000 soldiers and support staff, there was simply nothing. Not wreckage, not debris. Nothing. The asteroid the base had been built upon was gone as well, leaving only empty space. "Scan for survivors," Choi ordered. Her science officer worked the controls, then shook his head. No life signs. No energy signatures. No anything. It's as if this entire region of space was erased. Kim stared at the emptiness, trying to process what he was seeing. What could do this? "We call them the void," Choi said softly. "They consume all matter, all energy. They leave nothing behind." As they watched, a distortion appeared at the edge of their sensor range. It wasn't a ship or any recognizable object, more like a shadow that didn't belong, a patch of deeper darkness against the blackness of space. "There," Choi pointed. "That's them." The distortion grew larger, spreading outward like spilled ink. Stars winked out as it passed, not obscured but simply gone. "Get us out of here," Choi ordered sharply. The Horizon jumped away instantly, returning to safer space before the strange phenomenon could detect them. Back at their original position, Kim paced the command deck. "We need to warn every Imperial world in that sector. Begin evacuations immediately." "Already done," Choi replied. "We've sent automated warnings through every communication channel." "But Admiral, evacuation may not be enough. The void moves faster than your transport ships. Millions will be trapped." Kim felt the weight of those lives on his shoulders. "Then we need to fight. The Imperial fleet cannot harm the void," Choi interrupted gently. "Your weapons would pass through it like it wasn't there. This isn't an enemy that can be defeated by conventional means." "Then why did you bring me here?" Kim demanded. "If there's nothing we can do." "I didn't say that," Choi corrected. "I said conventional means won't work, but we've been studying the void for years. We've developed technologies that might help." She led Kim to a secure briefing room where several human scientists waited. The lead researcher, an older man named Han, activated a holographic display showing the void's projected path. The void is drawn to certain energy configurations, Han explained, particularly the unique signature produced by Imperial fold space engines. Your entire civilization has been broadcasting a dinner bell across the galaxy. Kim frowned. Are you saying this is our fault? No, Han shook his head. The void would have found this galaxy eventually, but your engine technology accelerated the timeline. So what can we do? Han manipulated the display, showing a complex diagram. We've developed a modification for Imperial ships and stations. It creates a counter-resonance that masks the fold space signature. The void can't detect what it can't sense. And this works? Kim asked skeptically. It's kept our settlements hidden for decades, Han confirmed. But retrofitting your entire fleet and all your worlds would take time we don't have. We need to focus on strategic locations first. Kim studied the tactical projections. If we can't save everyone, we need to establish safe corridors for evacuation. For the next several hours, Kim worked with the human team to develop a defensive strategy. Despite having been declared a traitor by some Imperial factions, he still had supporters throughout the fleet. Messages went out to every commander he trusted, warning them of what was coming. By the following day, reports confirmed that the void was expanding across Imperial space exactly as the humans had predicted. Outposts continued to vanish without warning. Entire planets were being evacuated, creating refugee crises throughout the Empire. Panic was spreading faster than any official could contain it. Kim was preparing another series of encrypted messages when an unexpected transmission came through. The Emperor himself appeared on the main view screen. Admiral Kim, the aged ruler said, his voice weary but determined. We have confirmed your reports about this void entity. The threat is real and growing. Kim bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I'm coordinating with the humans to develop defensive measures. The Emperor nodded. Those who declared you traitor have been removed from power. Minister Ryu has been arrested. You are hereby reinstated with full authority to command Imperial forces against this threat. Kim straightened, surprised by the sudden reversal. Thank you, Your Majesty. The Emperor's expression grew grave. There is more. The humans have contacted us directly, offering their assistance despite our unfortunate actions against their settlements. They show remarkable forbearance. They understand the greater threat we all face, Kim replied. Indeed. The Emperor paused. I am officially authorizing full cooperation with the human fleet. Whatever resources they require, whatever modifications they propose, make it happen, Admiral. The transmission ended, leaving Kim momentarily stunned. For 10,000 years, the Empire had dominated the galaxy, never as an equal, always as a ruler. Now, facing extinction, they would work alongside a species they had dismissed as primitive just weeks earlier. Within days, a joint task force was established. Human engineers began modifying Imperial vessels with their counter-resonance technology. The process was slow. Each ship required custom adjustments, but every converted vessel became invisible to the void's inexorable advance. As the modifications continued, the joint fleet prepared for their first coordinated action. Intelligence from scout ships showed the void approaching New Terra, an imperial agricultural world with 40 million inhabitants. The evacuation was only half complete. We need to buy them more time, Kim said during the final strategic meeting aboard the Horizon Asterisk. Captain Choi nodded. We've equipped your 3 largest battleships with our defensive systems. The plan isn't to destroy the void. That's impossible with our current technology. But we can divert it, create a kind of pressure wave that pushes it away from populated areas. Like changing the course of a river, Kim mused. Exactly. It will only be temporary, but it might give the evacuation ships enough time to escape. As the joint fleet moved into position around New Terra, Kim stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Dominion Asterisk, now fitted with human technology. Beside him, human technicians monitored their specialized equipment, their presence on an Imperial bridge once unthinkable. "Void distortion detected," announced the sensor officer, approaching from Vector 227. On the tactical display, the familiar darkness appeared, spreading toward the vulnerable planet. Millions of lives hung in the balance as Kim gave the order to execute their plan. "All ships, initiate counter-resonance fields. Focus emission toward Vector 227. Human and Imperial ships moved in perfect coordination, their modified engines generating invisible waves of energy. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the darkness began to shift, its edges curling away from the planet like smoke in a breeze. "It's working," someone whispered. The evacuation ships launched from the planet's surface, streaming toward the safety corridor created by the fleet. Hour after tense hour passed as the last transports escaped the doomed world. When the final ship cleared the danger zone, Kim allowed himself a moment of hope. They couldn't defeat the Void yet, but they had proven it could be manipulated. Human and Imperial technology, working together, had accomplished what neither could have done alone. As New Terra was finally consumed behind them, vanishing from existence as if it had never been, Kim looked at the human officers working alongside his Imperial crew. The galaxy had changed forever. The Empire was no longer alone, and perhaps that was their salvation. Admiral Kim stood beside Ambassador Yoon in the Imperial Palace's Grand Hall, a place where no non-Imperial species had ever been permitted before. The massive chamber, with its soaring crystal ceilings and ancient battle banners, had hosted 10,000 years of Imperial ceremonies. Today, it hosted something unprecedented. A ceremony to mark a new alliance between the Empire and the Human Confederation. 3 months had passed since the first Void incursion. 3 months of desperate battles, evacuations, and loss. 17 Imperial worlds had been consumed entirely. Billions of citizens had become refugees, flooding the inner systems. Yet compared to the total annihilation they had faced, these losses were considered a victory. The Emperor himself sat on the ancient crystal throne, his aged face showing the strain of recent events. Around him stood the newly reformed Imperial Council, many familiar faces now gone, replaced by younger, more adaptable leaders who had proven themselves during the crisis. "We gather today," the Emperor began, his voice carrying through the hall without technological assistance, "to recognize that the galaxy has changed forever. For 10 millennia, the Empire stood alone as the pinnacle of civilization. We now know this was not only incorrect but dangerous. Isolation nearly led to our extinction." Kim glanced at Ambassador Yoon, whose calm exterior revealed nothing of the exhaustion he knew she must feel. She had personally coordinated defensive operations across dozens of systems, working without rest to implement the human technologies that had saved countless Imperial lives. "Ambassador Yoon," the Emperor continued, "the Empire formally acknowledges the Human Confederation as an equal power within this galaxy. Your people's assistance in our darkest hour will never be forgotten." Yoon stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, we did only what any sentient species should do when faced with a threat to all life. The Void knows no boundaries, respects no territories. It threatens us equally." The Emperor nodded gravely. "Indeed. And yet, had our positions been reversed, I cannot say with certainty that the Empire would have shown such restraint." His words hung in the air, a remarkable admission from a ruler whose word had been considered infallible for centuries. Many in the hall shifted uncomfortably at this acknowledgement of Imperial arrogance. "The combined fleet has proven effective," the Emperor continued. "But Ambassador Yoon has requested this gathering to share information that may change our strategy moving forward." Yoon moved to the center of the hall, where a holographic projector had been installed. With a gesture, she activated a display showing the galaxy from above. Scattered throughout were hundreds of points of light, far more than the known Imperial worlds. "What you see before you," she explained, "are human settlements throughout the galaxy. Some are research outposts. Others are full colonies with millions of inhabitants. We have established these over the past 3 centuries, always in regions the Empire considered worthless or uninhabitable. Murmurs spread through the assembled imperial dignitaries. Even Kim, who had spent months working with the humans, was stunned by the extent of their presence. "How could you hide so much for so long?" asked one of the new counselors. Yoon smiled slightly. "The same technology that shields us from the void shielded us from imperial censors. We developed in secret because history taught us that emerging civilizations either become subjects or enemies of established powers." The Emperor leaned forward. "And now?" "Now we face a choice," Yoon replied. "Continue as separate entities, cooperating only out of necessity, or forge something new. The void cannot be defeated by either of us alone. Our scientists believe it may take decades to develop weapons truly capable of destroying it. In the meantime, we must stand together." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then, with effort that revealed his age, he stood from his throne. The entire hall held its breath. The Emperor almost never stood in the presence of others. "3 months ago," he said slowly, "I would have considered your hidden settlements an act of war. Today, I see them as a revelation and an opportunity." He descended the steps from his throne, crossing the distance to stand before Ambassador Yoon directly. Another unprecedented action. "The Empire must change," he declared. "We propose a new Galactic Council where humans and Imperials have equal standing, where decisions affecting our shared space are made together." Kim watched as history unfolded before him. For 10,000 years, the Empire had ruled through force and dominance. Now, faced with a threat beyond their comprehension, they were offering partnership instead. Ambassador Yoon bowed again. "The Human Confederation accepts, and we bring gifts to mark this new beginning." At her signal, a group of human engineers entered the hall, carrying the equipment that Kim recognized from his time aboard their ships. "Your Imperial technologies are remarkable," Yoon explained, "particularly your fold space engines and energy production systems, but they were developed along paths that inadvertently attract the void. We offer modifications that will not only shield your worlds but enhance their capabilities." Over the following hours, the human engineers presented their proposals. Imperial scientists who had been invited to the ceremony crowded around the technical displays, their initial skepticism quickly giving way to excitement. The human modifications would triple energy production on Imperial worlds, while making them invisible to the void. Transportation between systems would become nearly instantaneous. Communications would function across any distance without delay. One Imperial scientist, overcome with emotion, burst out, "This would have taken us centuries to develop independently." Yoon nodded. "Just as your materials science would have taken us centuries to master. Together, we advance more quickly than either could alone." As the technical discussions continued, Admiral Kim found himself approached by the Emperor himself, an honor that once would have been the pinnacle of his career. "Admiral," the aged ruler said quietly, "you recognized the truth before any of us. You put the survival of our people above imperial pride. History will remember your wisdom." Kim bowed deeply. "I simply did my duty, Your Majesty." "Your duty now expands," the Emperor replied. "I am appointing you as the first imperial representative to the new Joint Council. You will work directly with Ambassador Yoon to implement these changes throughout our territories." Kim straightened in surprise. The position would make him one of the most powerful individuals in the Empire, second only to the Emperor himself. I am honored, Your Majesty." "Do not thank me yet," the Emperor said with a rare smile. "Change is difficult, Admiral. Many will resist it. Old prejudices do not disappear overnight, even in the face of extinction." Later that evening, as the formal ceremonies concluded, Kim stood on a balcony overlooking the imperial capital. The ancient city stretched to the horizon, its spires gleaming in the light of 3 moons. For 10,000 years, this world had been the center of power in the galaxy. Now it was just one center among many. Ambassador Yoon joined him, looking out at the view. "Beautiful," she said simply. "It is," Kim agreed. though I imagine human worlds have their own beauty. They do. Perhaps someday you'll visit them. Kim turned to study her profile. There's something I've wanted to ask you. Why did humans develop in secret for so long? Why not reveal yourselves when you first achieved full space travel? Yoon was quiet for a moment. We studied history, not just ours, but the histories of dozens of species the Empire encountered. We saw patterns. Civilizations that developed technologies in specific sequences were more inclined toward conquest. Those that developed communication and cultural technologies before achieving faster-than-light travel tended toward cooperation. And the Empire followed the conquest pattern, Kim concluded. Yes, so we chose a different path. We developed our empathy and ethics alongside our technology. We waited until we were strong enough that we couldn't be conquered, but wise enough not to become conquerors ourselves. In the distance, a new ship rose from the Imperial shipyards, the first vessel built with combined human and Imperial technology. Its hull gleamed differently from traditional Imperial ships, reflecting light in patterns that seemed almost alive. Will it be enough? Kim asked softly. Against the void. I don't know, Yoon admitted. But together, we have a chance. Separate, we had none. The following morning, the newly formed Joint Council held its first session. Representatives from both civilizations gathered to begin the monumental task of reorganizing their societies. The void continued its advance, but each day brought new developments, new defenses, new hope. Kim, taking his place beside Ambassador Yoon at the head of the council chamber, looked out at the assembled delegates. Imperial officials in their formal uniforms sat beside human representatives in their simpler attire. Already, conversations flowed between them, ideas being exchanged freely. The ancient empire had been shaken by the arrival of a mysterious human fleet. What emerged from that shock was not collapse, but transformation. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed to survive. As the council session began and the work of building a new future commenced, Kim caught Ambassador Yoon's eye. She smiled slightly, and he returned the gesture. Some bonds transcended species. Some challenges united even the most different of peoples. And sometimes, the greatest threats brought out the greatest potential in all who faced them. The end.